And welcome to Glassdoor's 2018 Best Places to Work tour. I wanted to, yes, I hear some whooping in the audience. We should absolutely whoop. I wanted to welcome everyone here in the audience here at the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center in San Francisco. But I also want to give a huge shout out to the thousands of people around the world tuning into the live stream. Why? Because being a best place to work, a place where people want to work, a place where people like to work, is good for everyone, from the most entry-level employees, the highest-ranking executives. In fact, nearly all employers around the world share two things in common. They want to hire the best talent, and they recognize that hiring and retaining the best talent is no easy task. Over the next 3 hours, we'll dig deep into this paradox with the goal of helping you become a better company, a better employer, and a better business. And you'll learn how doing so impacts recruiting and retention efforts, and spoiler alert, also your bottom line. But before we get started, let me introduce myself. My name is JP Mangalinden, and I'm honored to be your MC for the day. I am also Chief Tech Correspondent at Yahoo Finance, where I cover tech and business for the outlet's 75 million monthly readers. As part of my role, I also cover company news, from hiring news to company culture to executive mishaps. Because at the end of the day, all of this impacts the bottom line and whether people decide to apply for your jobs and potentially join your workforce because they may or may not see you as a great place to work. Today, we're going to explore all of this, and I invite you to listen, to learn, to engage, and to engage with us on social media using the hashtag GDTour. First up, I'll interview two leaders at Facebook, Glassdoor's #1 best place to work, to find out what they do to create a work environment that pushes people to be their best and how that has a direct impact on their financial performance, recruiting, and retention success. Then, Glassdoor's chief economist will join us to explain how being a best place to work can improve your company's financial performance. That should speak to all of your CEOs. And after a quick break, we'll hear from executives from REI, from Kimpton Hotels, and Zoom Video. During this panel, we'll explore the DNA of best places to work, what these companies do day in and day out to build a dynamic culture that not only drives business, but also helps attract and recruit the quality that you want and deserve. And finally, we'll end our tour with a fireside chat with Glassdoor co-founder and CEO Robert Homan and author Patty McCord, who was the chief talent officer at Netflix for over 14 years. I heard another whoop. Patty will share why forward-looking companies are now building cultures of freedom and responsibility. And if you haven't heard Patty before, you'll want to hear her now. What she says and how she says it will inspire you and motivate you. So let's get started by introducing this year's #1 best place to work, Facebook. But before we hear from Facebook Live and in person, let's see what their own employees have to say in this video.
There are very few places you can work with the smartest people in the world on the hardest problems in the world and still have fun while doing it. You can literally change the world while still not giving up who you really are.
Probably the most important thing is the people who work here really believe in what we're doing. We believe that when we share who we are with the people we want to share with, it enhances our lives. And I think increasingly, we really believe in the power of community.
I just love that I have such a huge community here and that we're also working on products that help other people create their own communities too.
We have immense support from our management and executives in the company. When we're working on projects that we feel are impactful, and then we get that recognition from the exec team, it's very empowering.
I joined Facebook 3 years ago. Everybody was so open and collaborative. I felt like I had a seat at the table. I had a voice. I thought that was a really amazing opportunity that has helped me grow.
Everyone here owns the culture. There isn't one person whose job is to be responsible for the culture. One of my favorite posters is, "This is your company now." So, it's really saying to people the moment they walk in the door, we're all in this together and you're part of that now.
We have an amazing mission for us to accomplish, and we have a culture that allows us to go after it. When you think about sort of the bigger picture of connecting people, building communities, in the outside world, but also internally, that's a very powerful thing to go after. I think it brings us together as a group.
I mean, I never would have thought I would share all the things I share now. But I think building this product affects you. There is something we try to encourage here that I think runs through our product, which is we want to know who you are, and we care who you are, and we care about all the aspects of your life. And sharing that makes us better, stronger, makes us the people we are that work together to a mission we care about.
Great. Well, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome these two lovely ladies from Facebook, Vice President of Human Resources, Janelle Gale, and Liz Wamai, Global Recruiting Director. Please come on up. Well, Janelle, wherever works for you. Well, Janelle, Liz, hey, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Really appreciate it. Let's just clear the air. Let's just get out of the way first. Facebook has made a number of headlines over the last 12 months. When you, as a company, are facing external pressures and criticism, like many other companies do in Silicon Valley or elsewhere, how does that impact work culture, if at all? And how do you separate all that noise from recruiting and retention efforts?
Yeah, this is a good question to start with. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us today. I'm Janelle. And one of our core values at Facebook is focus on impact. It's really, really core to everything that we do. It's the type of people that we attract are really focused on solving big problems. And in fact, one of the things we do is we really hold people accountable to identifying big issues that they can work on. So even in our performance process, we say, did you select the most important problem to work on? And so the things that are happening in the news right now are things that we've been working on for quite some time. And we've got a bunch of people who are really energized by working on big issues for the company. And it's one of the things that attracts people to Facebook is that the fact that the platform has a huge magnitude and has impact in people's lives, the ability to work on issues or opportunities for them is really challenging. So right now, this is actually an exciting time to be at Facebook because there's lots of great work to do, and the type of people that we do attract are the ones who like big problems and opportunities.
And just to quickly add to Janelle's point, once again, thanks for having us here, is one, Mark's personal challenge for 2018 is to fix Facebook. So, when you talk about separating it from recruiting and retention, I actually think it's part and parcel of recruiting people who want to work on the most important problems about connecting the world. So you do want people who want to focus on impact, want to focus on some of the important challenges, and helping us fix and address some of the issues that have been raised in the last few months.
That being said, Facebook employees are renowned for loving working at the social network. Again, it was the #1 best place to work. What would you say is the #1 key differentiator for Facebook's, making its recruiting strategy so successful?
So, and I can speak to it from my own personal experience. I think one of the differentiators is the candidate experience. During the interview process or the recruiting process, we try to reflect the 5 core values of Facebook. So be open, be bold, focus on impact, move fast, as well as building social value. And by candidate experience, it means that as a candidate, whether or not you get the offer, that you have a delightful experience, that we're meeting you where you are, because talent is available across all the different markets. But I would say, for me, what was a differentiator, and a lot of the candidates will say this, is most of us use the Facebook products. So whether it's Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, Oculus, you're going to be interacting with us. And so what's your experience? Was it delightful? Did you feel that you engaged with the people? Did you learn more about Facebook during the interview process? So in my experience, I had an offer, a competing offer, and it was the speed of execution when I mentioned to Facebook, hey, I have something else going on. Literally, on Monday, I said I was withdrawing. By Friday, I had an offer after interviewing with all the key people. And I've seen that happen a lot of the times across all the different pipelines and functions we recruit for. So reflecting our core values during the interview process.
Well, we look forward a little bit. Facebook now has over 25,000 employees. Is that correct?
That's right.
And a lot of that hiring has happened over the last 4 years alone, which is pretty incredible. How do you sort of maintain quality control with regards to the candidate experience?
Sure. A couple of things that I can touch on. One of the ways that we do that is we leverage people during the interview process that are in similar roles to the role that you're interviewing for. And that maintains consistency in the process. So usually when you come in through, you're going to be interviewing with either somebody who's in a similar role, a cross-functional partner or peer, somebody who's potentially a future direct report, as well as your hiring manager. Structured interviewing, we aim for structured interviewing during the process because, as we all know, that is one way to eliminate interviewer bias and to have much more fair assessment and lack of subjectivity in the interview process. So the more structured, the more consistent the interview process, then the more that you can rely on the interview answers that are coming through and the decisions that are coming through. We also provide a lot of training to our hiring managers, to the interviewers, to the recruiters, to the sources. We use data a lot of the times to assess candidate experience as well as post-hire decisions to look at the people that we've hired, how well are they doing. But in terms of just having systems, checks and balances throughout the interview process so that we maintain that quality control.
I'd like to add, one of the things that's really important, and we've learned this along the way, is that unstructured interviews are the most common way people hire today in companies, which is pretty amazing to me because when you look at the science and the research behind it, really unstructured interviews are probably the least reliable way to hire. And so we've put a lot of effort into the structured piece, and it does take time to build, but I'd really encourage companies who are thinking about their hiring processes to take a look at the interview process itself, because there's so much bias that creeps in when you have unstructured questions. And people always think they're better at hiring than they really are. And so we really try to make sure that even the people who think they're pros are trained in the structured approach.
Well, to that end, Facebook has made a lot of strides over the last few years as well. You have Maxine Williams, who is not here today, but is making huge strides with regards to leading its diversity efforts for Facebook. And in fact, Facebook's workforce is up from 33% to 35% year over year, which is significant, I think. Can you walk us through how Facebook is sort of approaching diversity and boosting its diversity efforts?
You want to start on the recruiting side?
Sure. And I've been in diversity recruiting before, worked very closely with Maxine on Janelle's team. One of the things that we do is we have a multi-pronged strategy because as with diversity, and I think most of us know, is you can't expect to go to have an initiative in 1 year and expect that it's going to yield the kind of results you want. It's got to be a long-term plan. So we've got short, medium, and long-term strategy when it comes to diversity recruiting. On the short term, partnering with HBCUs, Hispanic serving institutions, there's organizations that we partner with that allow us to have more representation of women and underrepresented minorities in the interview process. Medium term, we partner with some institutions, some nonprofit organizations as well, that are educating more women and underrepresented minorities about computer programming, computer science, careers in finance, and analytics. And we also have a Facebook University program that allows people to come in earlier on in their careers while they're still in school, get exposed to different opportunities, and then join us on a full-time basis. And then on the long term is getting people when they're really young. If I think about it, I didn't know much about CS, computer science, growing up. And so getting to people even before they're in school, getting to their parents, getting to their guardians, exposing them to computer science. So these are some of the things we're doing on a very multi-pronged approach, while at the same time short term is just going out to those communities.
Yeah, and once we bring people into the company, we have a huge effort associated with making sure we build community internally. So, our mission is to give people the power to build community on our platforms, bring the world closer together. And internal community in our company is equally important. I mean, we're doing this for the world, so we want to do that for ourselves. And part of building community is making sure people really feel connected and feel like that they have a home and that there are groups and people that they can connect to from a community standpoint. And so there's a lot of effort that we do that we put into making sure we build an inclusive environment. From the minute people arrive, we make sure they go through our different trainings, things like managing bias. We all have bias. This is like a reality in the world. Let's not hide from it. So we address the hard issues head on, that here are the biases that exist. Let's figure out where you are in that and help you figure out how to navigate that. And really make sure that the practices and everything that we are geared towards is really geared towards fairness. The other part of this that we really look at is, there's the person coming into the organization. For females in tech, this is a big deal. And they may feel like they don't have a huge cohort group like, they did when they were younger, when they were a child. And so how do we make sure that those who are in the majority make sure that they're doing their part? And so we also have a program called Be the Ally, where we really enlist ally support to make sure that people feel welcome and that we're looking out for each other in terms of the small microaggressions or biases that show up in the workplace. And so we do a lot to kind of surface those things and have conversations about them and address them head on.
We have a number of people, both in the audience and among the thousands of people watching the live stream right now. A number of them are HR pros. What advice would you give to them about tapping into more diverse populations to help make their own workforce more diverse?
Yeah, I strongly, and I think we've all heard this expression, it's a cliche now, the silver bullet. There is no silver bullet. I'm not going to offer one today. But the multi-pronged approach and having it at different levels. So whether it is your university, your campus, your internship program, Facebook recruits in over 300 schools. We're not, there's a perception that it's Ivy League focused. It is not. In the US, it's over 300 schools that we go to. And also when you think about mid-career professionals, where are they? Do your branding strategies target mid-professional careers and underrepresented communities? Are the people you're sending out for the career fairs, for the events, do they represent the workforce that you want to attract? Because I think it does make a difference to people who they're engaging with, whether it's at career fairs, events, conferences. And so I think the way to go about it is to have a multi-pronged approach. Not one size fits all. Also tailoring your branding. We leverage our Facebook resource groups. We've got multiple resource groups, and we leverage them when it comes to identifying referrals, when it comes to helping close candidates. We also leverage, so I would say a multi-pronged approach that is, again, short, mid, and long-term focused, I think is what pays dividends over time.
How are you looking to innovate your recruiting methods moving forward? When I talk to other companies in Silicon Valley, for instance, companies like Airbnb and Pinterest are trying their hands at services like Paradigm, for instance, which uses newer technologies like machine learning, AI, and automation to help improve or weed out bias during the entire recruiting process. From Facebook's perspective, what are you guys looking to do?
Yeah, that's a good one. And I think we all get hit with all the AI tools, and there's always something cool that's emerging. And one of the things that we know in recruiting is that recruiting is one of those where you can't completely use technology because there's a human connection that you need during the interview process or in the selection process. But where we can leverage and are leveraging technology like machine learning, for example, is where you want to get to large candidate pools. And so if a candidate applies for a role, how can you use machine learning to help match them to other opportunities similar to what they've applied to? Another way that we're leveraging it is evaluation process, is how can you leverage technology, for example, to do faster evaluations, whether it's HireVue, I think is one that is out. So there's all this technology to help with bringing candidate communities closer or getting to large communities that we don't have access to, assessing and mining the data, presenting other opportunities to the candidates. So they apply for one role, and you look at what roles they've applied to, what skills, and match them to other opportunities anywhere at Facebook. But at the end of the day, technology is meant to augment the process and not to replace the people in the interview process. And other things like interview chatbots is I find the interview bot that we leverage at Facebook is really good when it comes to, it's basically when you're about to interview a candidate, it reminds you the candidate is on campus. You're supposed to enter interviewer feedback. Immediately after the interview, it sends you a reminder through. So it's a really good way of helping us make decisions faster, but again, not to replace people, but to support what people are doing through the process.
For people like me who take a long time to get my interview feedback in the tool, the interview bot follows me around. It's constantly sending me reminders, but it does really help, and they're constantly building on the tool to make sure we get better at it. The other thing I would say is we're constantly recruiting internally as well. So, not only are we looking externally, but we do internal recruiting. As our workforce grows, we want to make sure we're looking internally for people to move around and provide mobility experiences. And we're also using technology to really improve our ability to tee up jobs that might be a good fit for someone. So similar to what Amazon does, people who've read this book go on to read books like this. We're trying to do that for people who are in certain jobs. Going on to look at this job it's kind of like a lookalike job that might be a good path for you. So we're constantly improving the technology.
Janelle, you just referenced the fact that it's pretty easy or it's fluid with regards to employees being able to shift areas of expertise or things they'd like to work on within Facebook itself. Talk a little bit more about that process and how easy it is for them to do that.
So one of our really important philosophies at Facebook is that we want people in jobs that play to their strengths. And for us, the way we describe strengths is that you're doing work that you enjoy when time literally flies. And the reason we focus on that is because time and time again, the data that we look at in our engagement surveys shows us that people who are in jobs where they're playing to their strengths, they're much more engaged, they stay at Facebook longer, and they're more productive. And they're typically the highest performers. And so we do a lot to get people into jobs that are strength-based. And so a lot of our training, even from day one, we talk about this, like make sure you're in a job that's playing to your strengths, because we need your strengths behind everything that we're doing. And we know that you deliver more impact in that way. And so we're constantly in our training programs trying to make sure people are being self-reflective about when time flies for them. We even ask a question when we're interviewing people, tell us about your very best day, what were you doing? And we really gear a lot of our efforts to making sure people are in those jobs. And so in our technical teams, we have something called Hack a Month, where people can go try on a job for fit for a month and see if it works for them and for the hiring manager for that job. And we're really trying to make sure with all the movement happening with the new jobs that are coming online, that there's just this movement to people going into jobs that they really do care about. And literally the one difference between those people who stay and when we look at our exit surveys and those people who go is when people are kind of going below the red line of strengths, we know that they're getting into a red zone, and that's a higher indicator that they might leave. So we do a lot of work to make sure that doesn't happen.
Let's shift gears just a little bit. Over the last few years, Facebook has been associated with several mantras: move fast and break things, make the world more connected. How would you describe Facebook's scaling, evolving culture?
Yeah, this is a fun one.
Yeah.
We love talking about this. So culture for us is owned by everyone. I always say, if it's my job to manage the culture, Lord help us all, because I don't think you all want me managing our culture. And so what we do is we really focus on democratizing culture, and we send the message that from day one, we want people to own the culture. Literally in the new hire orientation room, there's a huge visual that says, this is now your company. And that's a message we send very strongly even from the interview process. We're looking people who have this ownership mindset, who want to make something, who want to build on something and add to it, and to add to and contribute to the culture. And so we're really looking for this thread of people who we think will come in and contribute to our culture in a meaningful way. And so for us, culture scales really easily when you have 25,000 people working on it. We literally have workplace groups, which is Facebook inside the company. We use Facebook Inside, and it's called Workplace. And there are work groups literally dedicated to the culture. How are we going to make Facebook great? And so what's amazing about it is literally it's kind of like a dam, and if there's a hole in the dam and the hole is starting to seep, you'll see someone like, we got to plug the hole here. And people will identify the problems that they're seeing, and then they'll go fix it. It's almost like an engineering problem. I mean, literally, we approach our culture like an engineering problem, where we want it to be a certain way. We're very clear about what our core values are, and then people are there to make sure that it happens, and that it's really malleable. It's sort of this moving organism, and that we're constantly trying to make sure it takes shape. So what's super cool about Facebook is that we've got 25,000 people strong working on it, and I never feel like I'm the one who's accountable. Nor do I want to be. I want our people owning it.
Yeah, and I can't do a question that you'd asked earlier about quality control. It starts from the beginning. So at the start of the interview process, identifying the selection process is, are you, during the interview, the way you're sifting people is, do you know what our mission is, and do you buy into the mission? And then the 5 core values. So give us an example where you focused on impact, where you had an impact, moving fast. So if you have that as a selection process, then the people that are joining the company really are, to Janelle's point, then also helping scale the culture. But it really, I believe, starts from the people that you identify during the interview process.
Well, speaking to that, someone once told me, we don't do, I'm talking about a Facebook employee, we don't do what we do to make money. We make money to do what we do. How do you keep mission then at the center of what Facebook does?
So when I joined almost 6 years ago, one of the first things that I did was I ran our employee survey. The one person who was running our survey was going on maternity leave, and she said, here you go. And so having no context, I literally was like, okay, I'm going to run this survey. I'm going to really improve it because I want to make impact. And I thought, I'm going to cut down the number of questions in the survey. It's pretty long, and so I think I'm going to really hone it to the things that I think will matter the most. And typically in engagement surveys, the things that matter the most are job-related factors, your manager, things that are very close to you in proximity. And so I cut the mission question. I literally cut the question that was, I believe that Facebook is at the time making the world more open and connected. And I thought, that is really important to our company, but I don't think it's the thing that's driving whether someone is going to stay or go. So I cut the question, and I got a lot of feedback. This is my first entree into good conversations at Facebook. And I literally had an analytics leader send me an email, and he's like, what happened to the question, the mission question? Where's the mission question? And I quickly learned that the mission question and the mission for our people is hugely important. And so we put the question back in, and we did deeper dive analytics. At the time, we didn't have all our own data, so we did more and more analytics on it. And sure enough, the thing that we found was mission drives things almost more than anything else for our people, the experience that they have. So pride in what we're doing, belief in what we're doing, the belief in social good, that what we're doing in the world creates social good. All of those things are so inherent to what attracts people to Facebook and keeps them there. And so that question has been really central for us, and we continue to measure it and pay attention to it. And then it gets reinforced through everything that we do. So again, when people join, we look for people who are aligned and really believe and passionate in what they can do at Facebook. We onboard them into what we're trying to do and make sure that that message is reinforced. And we even reinforce, there's no meeting where Mark literally does not talk about our mission. He touches on the mission in every public appearance, everything that he says. He brings everything that we do back to the mission, and it's really, really central to the internal dialogue that we have. And so even at our Q&A, we literally end every week's Q&A with a story about someone using the platforms that we have. And so there's just this constant reinforcing mechanism of a reminder of what we're here to do. Anything you would add to that?
Now, I had to say, joining from very different industry and coming into Facebook and how the mission lives, it's also the way we work. So if I think about the communities and the groups and how we communicate, we leverage, to Janelle's point, our platform, so Workplace, and the groups and the teams and how I communicate with my team is all within this community. So living it day by day, Q&A, where it's very open, very transparent, and you could ask Mark any questions during Q&A. So those little things, it's one thing when you have the mission on a plaque when you're walking by the hallway. It's another thing when you're living it day by day, the way you communicate with your teams, the way you work, and that's why it's so true and so believable for folks at Facebook.
So lesson learned, don't cut the mission question.
Good to know for everyone out there. That being said, being a mid-level or an entry-level employee, having feedback from leadership and management is so important to encouraging them and motivating them. How do you enable leadership to encourage and support employees?
So again, 6 years when I arrived, managers play a really important role at Facebook, and a very important role for scaling. The culture, the business, the things that we're trying to accomplish, the connection to mission at a team level. And when I arrived, we were talking about managers as if it was sort of a side job. Management was important, but it was really, your individual contributor work was most important, and you kind of managed on the side. And what we quickly realized was we are not going to scale this organization without real investment in our managers and real strength in our management roles across the company. And so we did a number of things that we put in place to make sure we had a real strong management layer. And the first thing was getting really clear on what great managers do. And so we identified who our good managers were based on our engagement survey, who our okay managers were, and those who were on the high and the low ends, and really identified what differentiated those that were great. And we identified really critical enablers to growing people. And the thing that we found was that managers at Facebook are not command and control. They don't lead from the front. It's not about directing work. And in fact, even the word manager is misleading. It's like you're managing. And that is really not what they do at Facebook. At Facebook, the great managers are supporting, they're taking care of people, they're reinforcing people's strengths, they're trying to make sure that they get the opportunities to learn and grow in their jobs. So they're really kind of side by side with their people, or even leading from behind, not from the front. And so everything that we do, all of our training is geared towards that. It's really reinforcing our concept of management, which is really about care, and support. It's almost like you're supporters, not managers. And really measuring that again through our pulse surveys and making sure we reinforce that through our messages. And what we found today is our managers are super happy. We pick people who are really happy to be in management. And we have what we call a dual career path, where you can choose to either be a manager or an individual contributor. We have literally VP level individual contributors. You can go become a very senior specialist, and we need that. We need very senior specialists in our organization who, if management is not their strength, we don't want them managing. And then we have people who love to manage, and we select them into those jobs. And if they decide management isn't for them, then they move off, and it's not a scarlet letter. It's okay. They can move out, and it's no problem because it's a choice. And that way we get the people who are really good at it in those roles.
One anecdote that ties to how different it is managing at Facebook relative to any other firm is, I remember being part of new hire orientation, and a couple of managers speaking to their experience and how they manage at Facebook is usually when you go to a new firm, the expectation is you go to your bag of tricks as a manager. If this situation happens, pull out this fixes it. If this situation happens, this is what you do. Very quick wins, and quickly learned that you really, at Facebook, is spending the first couple of months, I would say, learning the culture, understanding, listening is a big part of it. And then crucial conversations is, I can't tell you how many feedback, in terms of the feedback loop and how often feedback is encouraged in crucial conversations. But the whole concept of, as a manager, the tools that worked for you previously come to Facebook, apply the same command control, very different. And so it's really adjusting your style, to Janelle's point, where you're leading either from the side, from the back, being supportive, and less of a command control style. Yeah.
Less of a command control style. I love that. I love that. Time and time again, as I've spoken to Facebook employees, and this is also borne out with the fact that, again, Facebook is the number one best place to work for Glassdoor, is employees really treasure and love this idea of transparency. Talk a bit more for us about what transparency means for Facebook, and how is that sort of deployed and executed across different teams?
Do you want me to start?
Yeah.
Okay. So there are a few parts to this. One of our core values is be open. And for us, what that means is, first of all, be who you are when you come to Facebook. I remember when I was interviewing, I actually didn't even know I was interviewing. I thought I was having a networking lunch. And it turned out I was interviewing. And I was who I was. And it sort of worked out for me. But we really do look for that when we are interviewing people. We want people to be who they are authentically are as a person. And you can tell, when someone's putting on too much of a show or there's a facade, it's like, no, let that go. We want you to be who you are here. And that's important because we believe when you can let that go and you are who you are, you can actually show up better at work. And you can contribute faster because you're not focused on, oh gosh, how am I being perceived in this situation? There's no personal you and professional you, there's just you. And so we really believe that your ability to deliver results is based on you showing up as who you are, and we do a ton to really make sure that that happens. In the organization, the other part of being open is being transparent, and one of our really important core values is that we give people the information and the context that they need to do their jobs. The more information, the better. And so if you are who you are, you get the information you need, you can move faster and you can deliver results faster. And there's a lot that we do in the environment to really sort of reinforce this transparency.
And again, to leadership transparency, to the survey that Janelle talked about, it's run twice a year. And one of the things that jumped out for me as a manager was leadership transparency, and that there was a feeling that was not communicating as regularly. When decisions were being made, people felt that they were being made in a vacuum. So you do get feedback about where people feel that, yes, they're involved in the decision making. When you're rolling out a process, are you involving the right people in the decision? Do they know what the milestones are going to be? But you do have data points, and there's feedback provided to you through the survey. If people feel that as a leader, you're not transparent enough, you're not communicating enough, and allowing for there to be free-flowing information. So it's also a key part of how we're measured and how we're tracked.
And our leadership is really transparent. So they really role model that from day one. Mark literally, Liz said that at every weekly Q&A, Mark will answer any question. I mean, you ask it, he answers it. Sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're asking that, and he will always readily answer a question because there is a deep belief that the more relevant information you have, the better you can do your job. And so there's just this free-flowing information, not only about the company, but also personal things, people are going through. So people will ask Mark, what was the biggest mistake you made last half? How did you rate yourself? How did the board rate you? There's all these just questions about self-reflection, and the more vulnerable and open people can be about the mistakes that they've made, the better we can move, because if we can identify a mistake, figure out what the lesson learned is, move on and incorporate it, we'll be better off as a company. And so part of that is also this self-reflection that allows us to move and go and contribute.
I want to shift gears again a little bit to talk about retention. I don't know how many people in the audience who are watching the live stream have been to Facebook headquarters here in Menlo Park, California, but it's kind of awesome. Let's get real. There are a lot of wonderful tangible perks and intangible benefits. Can you talk about how you actively sort of retain the top talent, what those measures look like?
So, the perks are awesome. For
Yes.
sure.
Yes.
I love the food. It's delicious. I think our culinary team every day, it's pretty amazing. And perks are there really for convenience. And so because of where we are and where we're located, we're focused on perks literally to provide convenience to people so that they can focus on the things in their life that matter the most, which is the stuff that they're doing at work and in their personal lives. And so while the perks are awesome, they are not the most important thing, and they certainly are not the most important thing from an attraction and retention standpoint. The things that do matter are some of the things that we've talked about. The ability to deliver meaningful impact really, really, really is a motivator for our folks. And so we want them working on the biggest issues, the biggest problems, and there's something really energizing about that. And we want them doing it in areas of strength where they're feeling like time is flying by. And honestly, that is the difference between the people who stay and go, is that they're doing meaningful work in areas that matter to Facebook and in areas that matter to them.
Yeah, the perks. You do get the Facebook 15 pounds that you gain
Facebook
once
15.
you join with the sweet shop. But to Janelle's point is it really does make a difference. If you think about recruiting, is we are bringing a lot of people from different parts of the world relocating to the Bay Area. For a lot of them, this is the first time they've been here. I lived in New York 20 years before that. So coming here, the convenience of the transportation, the shuttle that gets you down to Menlo Park, the food, you don't have to. So it really is designed to make it easier for you to do your job and to have an impact. But yes, they can be a little bit distracting.
Well, sort of a parting question for both of you is, God forbid, employees decide they do want to move on. How do you approach that process, the exit interview, and what do you glean from them to help improve the current Facebook process for our current employees?
Yeah,
Sure. So we always look at moments that matter in sort of the life cycle of a person at Facebook. And one very important point is when they enter, and another very important point is when they exit. And we try to get as much information at that point in time. But the thing is, if we're waiting till then, we've failed because it's too late at that point. We can certainly learn, and we do learn from the exit interview, but we're trying to get much more predictive around what's going to drive someone to leave, which is why we do a lot of surveying, we do a lot of analysis between those people who stay and go. And what we'll do is in aggregate, we look at the people who go and look at their answers to the survey 6 months prior. And we see what were the trends that were leading them to go. And again, at the top of every survey is that they weren't playing to their strengths, that they started to enjoy their job less for whatever reason. And so we're constantly looking at the contributing factors to what gets in the way of that. And we're trying to, and we literally measure the percentage of time people spend doing work that they enjoy. It's on a sliding scale. It's 0 to 100%. How much time are you doing work that you enjoy? There's lots of stuff in our jobs that, we could take or leave. Mm-hmm. But really, we want to target, and our threshold is above 70%. We want, more than 70% of your time doing work that you really enjoy. That's like our threshold. When it dips below that, it becomes a problem. So if we waited till the exit interview, it's really technically too late. We do analyze it, but we're trying to really get predictive upstream, and people tell us what they want. They're very clear about it, and we're really honing and doing all of our work there.
Yeah, and then if the decision is that they leave, then as alumni of Facebook, to the point that we made earlier, they are using Facebook products. They will be referring people. So you want to make sure that that exit is a seamless exit. It's not a negative exit, that they have a good experience, the same way when you're breaking up with a candidate who's not getting an offer. offer that they have a good experience, and that they walk away saying, hey, I wasn't playing to my strengths, but I can recommend people or refer people to Facebook or to different opportunities. So it's making sure that it's a delightful experience, even if they're exiting the company.
Well, terrific. That's all the time we have, unfortunately. But Janelle Gale and Liz Wilmai from Facebook, thank you. Thanks to both of you for sharing your time and insight with the audience today. Really appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.